67 of Monster, and what are we gonna do? Nina is confronting Johann, and we're gonna get a story from her perspective, which I just got done reading volume 8, which I was told I could read after episode 66, so I just got done reading volume 8. Here we are. This volume's really good. I was thinking about it. This volume starts with the episode that has Martin. It's the episode The Man Who Saw the Devil, which was episode 61, 62. So this entire volume spans episode, let's say 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, and then 66. So 6 episodes. So the volume back there that's really big is supposed to be spanning 8 episodes. So that kind of makes more sense. So yeah, this volume is about 6 episodes. Seems legit, right? But this is a really good volume. One of my favorite volumes so far. I really like volume 8 a lot. It is mostly beat for beat with the episodes, but there are a few added things. So I kind of earmarked, I know it's so sacrilegious to earmark a book, but I had to note where things happen. So one of the things is in the episode where Nina, well, it's the Welcome Home episode. In the episode, well, that's the end of the episode. We just got to that. But anyway, it's the welcome home moment where Nina freaks out because she keeps saying welcome home, but nothing ever happens. And we see that Peter comes and grabs her. There's a tiny little scene that was taken out. I could see why they cut it, but thematically, I kind of wish they'd kept it. And it's where they meet Reichwein at the airport or wherever they are at the train station. And Reichwein says, Dieter sees him and he says, welcome home. So Reichwein says welcome home to Nina and Dieter, and it's like, oh, but this welcome home has a much different meaning than the one that Nina knew from Peter and her time before. So I thought that moment was really neat. Other moments that were added, we cut from, it's nice, I kind of think that it's nice that we have that welcome home moment from Reichwein though, because then we cut to Nina. I love the color pages that we see of Nina and Peter and all of them. The color pages in Monster are really, really well done. But I like that we cut to Nina in the garden when Dieter and Reichwein are working on the bench, and she doesn't seem quite as zoned out in this because we had that welcome back scene. She's just trying to remember. So that part I thought was really good to note. The next added scene is, it was actually added in the episode with Milan in it, and it's where Milan makes the note. He says, I'm going to kill Peter. He's like, I'm going to kill Peter. And then we cut to this chapter 132, Beyond the Rooftops, where it shows Milan welcoming Peter back into Germany, and they hug each other. He's got some facial hair, so he looks like he's aged a little bit. He's a little rough for wear. But they go throughout the entire neighborhood, and he talks to Peter about how it's filled with Turks and Vietnamese and people from all over. It's not much to look at, but it's home, which gives more context to the people that are living there with Milan. And then Peter says, it takes me back. It's much like the neighborhood where we grew up. And those windows are like the ones we used to throw paper planes from. And he's like, this is a second home. I'll make it my second home. And I kind of thought that was interesting because later on there's another scene with Peter where he's kind of lamenting not enjoying the world that he grew up in. And this reminds him of that world. And he says it's his second home, not his first home, but his second home. So there is like a little bit under the surface there of Peter's like kind of prejudice against that past that he didn't like. But it's also a really good tie-in where they're like, oh, that window looks like the one we like flew paper airplanes out of. And then we go straight to the scene where Tenma's teaching the kids how to make paper airplanes. So I thought that was a really good tie-in. It's easy to cut some of these things from the episode because they're not necessary, but they're really nice little additions. And then this line, we get a lot more from Milan about his son, who was one of the kids in the reading group with Peter, who is basically trying to imitate the experiment of Kinderheim and the experiment of Bonaparte. And we get a little bit more about the son, where the massacre that occurs, all these kids that Peter was teaching started to kill each other, and the instigator was Milan's son. Which is really messed up because it's like, Milan's like, you're my best friend. I grew up with you. I let my child near you. And you brainwashed him, and he started killing other kids and killed himself. Like, and that was your best friend that did that. So it's like, what the fudge? So that part was really crazy. And then we go back to this moment here where we have Peter and Milan's childhood. Now this part's really important. It was giving me a lot of Attack on Titan vibes, if you've been watching Attack on Titan. And what I mean by that is that Milan makes the point of saying, he tells Peter, he tells Tenma that Peter's a monster and that he brought this monster here. But he also says that he changed. He's like, Peter wasn't like this until he was an adult. However, there's a scene here in the manga where they're flying the paper airplanes and they're talking about old man Gregor, and Milan says, well, he's a drunk. He talks all kind of nonsense. And he's like, I heard that beyond the border, they got something that messes up guys like old man Gregor. And Peter says, something that messes people up? I'd like to see that. And Milan says, really? Not me. And they fly the airplanes. But the fact that Peter's like, oh, something that messes people up, I want to see it. That moment there is kind of like, again, that nature versus nurture. Milan believes that the situations that Peter were in made him the monster that he is today. But that moment there where Peter says, oh, I want to see what messes people up, that shows that that kind of mentality's always been with Peter. And it's not something he grew up to find. It's always been there. So I was like, ugh. So that's kind of like, I don't think the monster like was formed as an adult. I think it was formed when he was a kid, which is pretty messed up, right? And again, we have the idea that he's like, I'm the one who brought the devil to this town, which is kind of like Tenma saving Johan. I'm the one who let this devil go, right? Crazy stuff. So as far as anything else added to this, I would say that what was saying here? They're talking about the sandbox and the guy. He's like, he didn't say a word, but I understood. We don't need words. We just understand that the world doesn't need people like that. Which again, the idea of names. So again, when you have a name, you are easy to get targeted because that name defines you. And so here where they're saying we don't need people like that, it's just the name that signifies. He's like, we didn't have to talk, we didn't have to use words, we didn't even know who they were, but their name signified they weren't worthy. So again, talking about names, their importance, why Bonaparte doesn't want any of his experiments to have names, because then they can be targets for one another, and then they can't control them because your name gives you an identity. All sorts of fun stuff. But yeah, but then there is this scene here, these 2 pages. You have a scene where it shows Peter grabbing who we think, I thought from the episode it was Nina, but here in the manga, it kind of looks like it could be Johan. Could be Nina, could be Johan, but you have that image that gets Peter's attention of grabbing the child, and then the very next page, you see the shot of Johan. It's like you see the kid up here that could be Johan, could be Nina, and then you see the adult on the next page. Genius. I'm like, Urasawa, you genius. So is it Nina or is it Johan? Because this manga makes me question, right? Because Nina seems like she has the memories inside of her, but it seems like the events that she's remembering happened to Johan and not her. So are they psychically linked? Are these twins psychically linked? Did this happen to both of them? What is going on? Nina's memory's always been kind of spotty to begin with, so it's like, what are we going to find out between them? That is the question, right? I think there was only one other thing other than the manga that was given here. Yes. And at the end, he says to her, welcome home. And it's like, because he says to her, he says, when I ran away from the Red Rose Mansion and got back to the apartment at the Three Frogs, you greeted me. So now it's my turn to say welcome home. But she's been remembering it like that the entire time. So what's going on with their memories? Because then it ends with her saying, I'll tell you a story. And it ends with it saying, I'm back. Something's up and we need answers. We need answers, monster. Something's up here. And maybe, I don't know, we've got 8 episodes left. Will this series give us those answers in this episode? Probably not. But I do want to see what Nina's talking about from her perspective and what she means. Like, what does she mean by welcome back and all that story? I don't know. That's the question. The only comment I have to have was FS Master was talking about Del Toro wanting to do a live action adaptation of this series, and they were like, how would he address things culturally? Are they going to keep it historically like it is in the show, or try to make it modern? Here's my thing. First and foremost, I have nothing against Benicio del Toro. I like some of their work. I like Pan's Labyrinth a lot. I like their work quite a bit, but we don't have to remake Monster. I don't understand. I hate the concept of, for one, I absolutely loathe the concept of making something live action just to reach a different audience. Have them watch the animation. I feel like there's such a prejudice and stereotype against animation anyway, that it's just for kids, that it causes adults to not appreciate shows like this, that is a very adult show. It is not for children. And I'm like, just making it live action, why? This show doesn't need to be made live action. It's pretty much, it's an animated live action already. There is no element of it that would be better in live action. There's just not. And I think that you can't really, part of this story, what benefits from it is the fact that it is grounded in a historical moment, and it goes back several generations, that you need it to stay historically like it is, right? I mean, if you want to tell a different story, but use kind of the same concept, go for it. But remaking Monster, I don't think is necessary. I think the style is perfect. I don't think there's anything wrong with this series that would warrant it. When I think of remakes, I want you to remake something that sucks and make it better. But if it already is great, if it's not broke, you don't have to fix it. So I don't know. I would probably not watch a live action Monster because the animated version is too good. It's perfect. Why do you need to remake it? I don't understand. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. And I like Benicio del Toro, but I just don't think it's necessary. So there you go. But in any case, we're not going to waste any more time. I'm ready to dive in and see what we get. So that's what we're going to do. But we're going to start episode 67 of Monster. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh my gosh, this episode. What? What? Oh, so we finally get some answers that somehow give us more questions. But yeah, so we finally get more answers. We get more questions that could give us more answers. And I am just kind of stunned by the revelation that Nina is the one. Nina is the one that's part of the project. But then where does that leave us with Johan? That's the big question, right? That is the big question in all of this. So, okay, we need to break this down, right? Because this episode just, oh my God, I can't believe. And of course, Johan gets away. Of course, Johan gets away. He's like, are you going to shoot me? I'm going to end it all. And Johan, just this idea of the end. The memories, the end, him on the throne. Humans can become anything. And then him standing over Nina. That humans can be anything. Oh my God. So yeah. Okay, so we need to talk about Johan and Nina. We're going to put them up here. Johan. And then we're going to put Nina on here. And I know that's not their actual names, if they even have actual names. But there's some crazy stuff going on here. So obviously Johan, he loves his sister, right? And he loves his sister. And when she talks about how he was like looking at her and smiling while seeming like crying, I feel like that's a sign that Johan was so horrified by what she had witnessed and by what had happened to her, that he felt the need to protect her and he wanted to keep her safe. And we saw that basically him erasing anyone that would come and get her. And that would lead back to Bonaparte. There's this weird, I'm curious when we get to Bonaparta. I thought at the end of the episode that Johan was at Bonaparta's house. I thought the weird guy making tea was going to be like Bonaparta's like attendant or something, or another son or something like that. But I don't think that's the case. I get this very weird vibe that there is a sense of, because Bonaparta, he did the monster's love letter trying to appeal to the mom, Anna, and she was basically like, no, you got the man that I loved killed, so absolutely not. I don't want to be with you. So there's a weird part of me that wonders if Bonaparta was going to try and make a move on Nina, because she's technically not his daughter, so if he was going to like try to groom her or do something like that. I don't know. It gave off that weird vibe. And then Johan's like, so basically Johan became a monster inadvertently to save his sister in a weird way. Because, yeah, he loves his sister. So if she's the one that went to the readings, she went to the readings, or at least she went to some of them, right? She went to the readings, was in the padded room that like dulled your senses. You didn't know where anything was. And then she witnessed the 42 die. We still don't know what that's about. Like, why did the 42 people have to die? What's going on with that? Why was he covering his tracks? That's not been explained yet. So we're going to put a question mark by that. And then she's the one that got struck by the rose. And went back. And she's the one that said, I'm back, which is the title of the episode. And she always heard the welcome home. And she told Johan what happened. So the big question in all of this is, why are they both dressed like girls? Why are they both dressed the same? And another big question is, did Johan attend any of the readings as well? So did Johan attend the readings like Nina did? We don't know. We don't know if that's the case or not. We know that Lipsky did, but he wasn't invited back because he was a failure, quote unquote. But did Johan attend the readings dressed as Nina? I don't think there's any kind of psychic connection, but for a second I wondered if they had like psychic powers and they were able to transfer memories, and that was their being ahead of the human race or leading humanity. But I don't think that's the case. I think it's that she did go and witness the people getting murdered, and she like explained all that to Johan, and those memories were so awful that Johan from that point on was like, okay, we're going to leave this place. We're going to run away. We're going to get you far away from all of this. And we're going to get it to where you don't have to remember these horrible memories anymore. Right? So the question of whether he attended the readings dressed as Nina has not been addressed yet. So let's put over here like questions. So questions that we have, right? We have 7 episodes left. Here's my thing. Lunge's been doing his homework. While we've been sitting here wondering what's going on with Tenma and Eva and Kristoff and Martin and all this, Lunge's been out doing some dirty work. He's been out getting some information for us, right? And I'm assuming now that I'm assuming Lunge is near Bonaparta. Lunge may beat Johan to Bonaparta. That's what we've got to figure out, right? If that happens. But the question is, why did the 42 people die? Because they clearly were all tied. They were all benefactors of the experiment. Why did Bonaparta kill them off? What was the point? Why was that? So why that? Why was Johan dressed as a daughter? Because I was trying to say in the reaction, Bonaparta was around when the two were born. So he knows that Johan's male, right? Johan's male, right? Correct? I think so. So he knows Johan's a boy and Nina's a girl. So why were they both dressed as boys? Wouldn't he have known and saw through that? Right? Unless, I mean, what was the point of it? Why was that the case? I don't know. We don't know the answer to why Johan was dressed as a girl yet. That part does not make sense. And this episode does not answer that question. It just shows that they were dressed the same, but it doesn't explain why. So we've got to figure that out by the end of it. So why that, right? But Nina seems like, and then the question was, have they both been to the readings or just Nina? Or did Nina just go and not Johan? Why not Johan? These are all very important questions that I'm hoping the show will answer by the end of it. So if not, we'll talk about it then, right? I don't want anybody explaining in the comments, well, this is what it means. We've still got 7 episodes left. We'll find out. But I think that Johan saw what happened with Nina, and he said that basically he's trying to tie up all these loose ends so that she doesn't have to suffer. Like, everything kind of makes a little bit more sense. Like, for example, him going to Kinderheim and her not going to Kinderheim seems like it was orchestrated purposefully. Like, he basically went to Kinderheim instead of her, and she went to a random orphanage because they ended up in 2 separate places, right? And I would assume that there's a little bit of sexism going on here because Kinderheim all had boys, right? And if we said this child is the result, this is the child we want, and it's Nina, well, that kind of goes against the formula that Kinderheim's been having, which has been all boys trained to be soldiers. So the question then becomes, was Johan like, I can't let my sister end up in Kinderheim. That's the last place she needs to go. So I'll go in her stead and go from there. And what's kind of funny about this is that the monster in the book, their name is Johan. So Johan taking on this name becomes a label, it becomes a form of identity for him. He becomes the monster because Wolf gave him that name, right? In some regards, but in other regards, he killed, as far as we know, here's the thing, he killed the 2 that were at the border that were going to turn them in, right? He killed them. Because for a second I thought, all right, well, she was like, why did you kill our foster parents? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? For a second, I wondered, did Johan actually kill the Lieberts? Or did Nina? Did Nina kill the Lieberts? And it's like a Grimmer situation where she became Steiner and doesn't remember it. And if that were the case, did Johan tell her to shoot him to be like, I'll take the blame, shoot me and run away? But that doesn't quite make sense because if he knows she's kind of a loose cannon and has that inherent capability to kill others, that doesn't quite make sense, right? Why would he have her kill him and then her run off, right? That doesn't quite make sense. But maybe both of them went to the readings. They're both sleeper agents. Johan figured it out before she did, and he was like, okay, I realize I go into this state where I become a different person, like the Magnificent Steiner, and he awoke and was like, I gotta kill me. This isn't gonna work. And you can run away and maybe you'll be okay. Maybe Nina, let me rethink this. This episode has me thinking lots of things. Maybe Nina is not a sleeper agent despite going to the readings. She's kind of like Lipsky, and it kind of failed in that regard, but Johan, it succeeded. And that's the memory Johan doesn't want to tell her, is that he went to the readings and it worked for him. He's a sleeper agent, but she's not. She's like Lipsky, where it didn't work out. So Johan, when he becomes this other person, kind of like Grimmer, he kills people and he's like, I need you to shoot me before I hurt you, and then run away. And maybe that's it. And then Tenma brought him back, and so here we are, right? And we just go from there. That could be the case. I feel like we got a little bit of the mystery solved, but not all of it. So there's still 7 episodes to go, right? And he's like, what is the end of all this? And to Nina, she says the end is, well, I'm going to die and so are you. But that's kind of, on the one hand, yeah, that may stop Bonaparte's plans with the 2 of them. But as it's been stated to Tenma from Martin, the experiments are still happening. They're still going on. So even if Johan and Nina die, it's not solving the root of the problem. And I feel like right now Lunge is off trying to solve the root of the problem, oddly enough. Lunge is like, oh, this is much more interesting than the whole Tenma thing. Forget that. I'm on vacation. This is way more exciting. And it's also kind of what Grimmer was after, too, was stopping the system. Johann dying, Nina dying, Bonaparte dying. They're just people. They're just names. But the system as a whole is the problem. So it's like shooting the symptoms is not going to stop the problem, right? You've got to get to the root cause. And I feel like that's what Lunge is doing. So I'm excited for next episode to see what happens. And then them questioning what did each other see. I'm glad Tenma made it to them. I'm glad that Tenma made it to them because I thought for a second that maybe Kristoff had led them astray, but that's not what happened. So good deal. They actually made it. I don't know how this series is ending. I really don't. I hope our questions get answered. I hope they get answered. I feel like they will, but man, this show is not going any direction that I imagined. And again, Johann's like, do you mean the things that I saw? The things I told you about? And he tries to tell her, you know, about the situation. And what's so creepy about this flashback is because they're both dressed as girls, it really is hard to tell whose memory is whose. And who told who what, because you're kids, you're impressionable, you remember things differently. But Nina's like, no, I felt this, I remembered this, under hypnosis, I re-experienced all this, these are my memories, I just told them to you. And you're taking those experiences and making them your own and acting on them. But it seems like he's trying to make her feel better. He's like, well, then I'll just take all of this pressure on myself and you won't have to worry about it. And, you know, that also brings up the idea of when she kept saying kill back in the hospital, you know, was she being triggered to kill him because of the indoctrination, right? That leads you to think that, like, was she indoctrinated and that's why she was, you know, saying kill over and over again? So, on the one hand, you're kind of like, okay, is this all, you know, Johann, this all seems nice of him to try and alleviate his sister's woes. He's like, you know, I've seen you suffer. You're all I have in life. All I want is my sister. I'm going to free her from this horrible, horrible institution doing horrible things to her by erasing everything leading back to her. And then they won't be able to touch her anymore. The irony of all ironies is Nina is the one they should all want. Nina is the one that Baby and the others should want as their dictator, if this is true. But none of them think Nina's the one. They think it's Johann. They think because he's a guy. And I'm like, oh, are you joking? And Johann's the one that doesn't care. Johann's only doing this to save his sister. Now, there is the deal with Milosh, right? There's the deal with Milosh and that conversation he had back with him when he made the comment to Milosh that he's like, oh, well, so your mom would recognize you. And now that we see him and Nina dressed the same, is there going to be a point where the mom sent the wrong kid with Peter? And that's what sets this off. Was Johann meant to go that day and Nina went instead? That's the question, is because Johann seems very resentful of that. He's like, my own mother couldn't recognize me. There's something about that I want to know about. I want to know about what is Johann's memory. Johann says he has a memory that is his and his alone that Nina doesn't know about. Well, what is it? And I'm sure we're going to find it out by the end of the story, right? So she was in there for a while. She was at that place long enough to have all these different meals, right? And then they let her out. And then this man says, listen up. People can become anything. Oh, that him grabbing at her with the hand is creepy and saying people can become anything. Nope. That Bonaparte is freaking creepy. We've only seen him say like one phrase out loud, and all we've seen are his weird sketches and Lunge's note that he has that he left for Anna. Creepy as hell, right? That's one thing I really like that Monster does, is it's so minimal that you don't really get a good idea of who Bonaparte is, but you know he's terrifying. He's creepy. He's brainwashing these children, and he's definitely a threat, right? It's also the perspective in this episode was so creepy. Like everyone looking down and being like, is it appropriate for a little kid like wandering around like you? And they're like, oh, this child, this kid. And everybody just keeps staring at them creepily. And then all the wine comes in and they're like, we, the result, we, the chosen ones, a toast to the future of our country. And then Bonaparte is just standing there. So the question is, what? Because Bonaparte, the creepy thing is, he doesn't look threatening at all. Bonaparte doesn't look menacing. He doesn't look evil. He just looks apathetic and nihilistic and indifferent. He doesn't look like a mustache twirling villain. He's just watching these people poison themselves. But why? Did he just up and decide to kill them all? What's the deal? Why? We don't know, right? But Nina ran away. And so then, yeah, Johan's just saying over what she told him. Ugh. And that's when she leaves. And I love that we have the idea of the reflection in the broken mirror. And so I ran. And I didn't notice the rose thorns had cut my arm. And you told me it all. And I love that she kind of just stares at him. Like in disbelief. And all the shots of like, what I love too about the set piece of this scene is it's like the building, the mansion is crumbled. Like it's all just this skeleton. It's bare bones. It's the foundation of it all. And the foundation of it all is that it's her memories, not his. And he just took her memories and ran. And her just being like, you're wrong. And her crying, oh my God, like her tears and everything when she's just crying there at him. And she's like, you're wrong. And of course, you know, in that moment, and in that moment when she looks at him and he just looks down like he knows he's wrong. Like she's figured it out because the face that he makes is like, oh, so you've got your memories back. That's the face that he makes. The face he looks down almost looks like he's ashamed that she's got her memories back. And she knows what the truth is. And her crying saying, you're wrong. Oh my God. And then Tenma showing back up. So she didn't kill him. He left. But she was going to kill herself. And now the question is, in all of this, why would Johan leave her if she was about to kill herself? Why would he do that? Did he know Tenma was coming? Did he see Tenma was coming? The thing about Johan that's so an enigma is that there are times, like in this episode, where I'm like, okay, is he doing all of this to protect her? Was he killing everyone around her that could possibly lead Bonaparte back to her and have him try to take her away? And he's wanting to stop all that and destroy it? Is he doing this all for her? There's a part that makes you think that, right? But then there's stuff like what he does with Milosh that makes you think, no, he's got his own repressed problems that he was like projecting onto Milosh in that moment and onto the other kids, making them kill each other. Or is that just, you know, his version of Steiner the Magnificent, this long running persona that he takes on. And then he wakes up and goes, oh no, that wasn't me. I didn't mean to do that. But if that's the case, then why did he leave her to kill herself? Did he know she wasn't going to? Did he think it was better if she did? Why did he leave? Johan, he's there like a ghost and he evaporates in a wisp of smoke and you never see him again. So that is the one thing that's weird about this scene is that from what he's told us, it seems like he has been trying to protect his sister and keep the two of them safe. They go off and be their own people. But then he leaves her to possibly kill herself. And I'm like, then what's the point of trying to protect her if you're going to leave her when she's going to kill herself? I don't know. Unless he saw Tenma coming and was like, okay, Tenma will save her. I've got to go take care of Bonaparte. Bye. And then leaves. You know, maybe that's the case. We don't know. We don't know. But I'm glad how Tenma handles it. And he like goes up to her and he's like, hey, calm down. And he gets her to stop. He's like, calm down. He takes the gun away. And then just like collapsing. This entire scene, the expressions between Tenma and Nina, the expressions between them, the silence, the eerie quiet, like everything about this scene, the chair falling over felt like a scene of a suicide, like when someone hangs themselves and they kick the chair out from under them and then they fall. That's what it seemed like this scene was. But then Tenma comes in, and of course, because he's a doctor, he saves her. Because that's his job. And he says, it's okay now. And she's like, you're wrong. Yeah, and Tenma, I like that Tenma doesn't correct her. He's like, it wasn't me. She's like, I wasn't the one who said, welcome home. The one who said, welcome home was Johan. Yeah, because then we see Johan in his face where he looks so like, welcome back. Like he looks so fine. And she's the one that looks disheveled. Johan only heard what I told him. The one who was taken to the Red Rose Mansion was me. The one who was dragged down the stairs of the Three Frogs in the pitch black room, who counted the meals, who stood in the room of dead bodies. That was me. And Tim was just like, oh my God, all this is getting unloaded. And then she was like, I was scared. And she went back home. Yep. And of course came in there and told him everything. And then just to see her in that bare room collapsing and looking terrified. And he sat there and listened. And she took my experiences and made them my own. It's my fault. And see, she blames herself. She's like, I made him into the monster because I told him all these bad things that happened to me. That's why he became the monster and did this. And Tim was like, no. You cannot blame yourself. He's like, if I'm not allowed to blame myself for bringing him back, you can't blame yourself either. No. That is not the case. No. And him telling her it's okay. She's like, I told him everything. And back then, Johan, he listened to me and looked like he was about to smile, but also like he was about to cry. It's like, I don't know whether to laugh or to cry, right? One of those moments. Oh my God. I can't wait to see expressions in the manga volume of this. I cannot wait, but and it's like the monster in the East and the monster in the West. The monster in the West, what's so fascinating is the monster in the West the monster in the West didn't have a name. It didn't need a name, right? Just like Bonaparte says, it didn't need a name. You know, it's kind of like Nina is being what Bonaparte wanted, saying, oh, you don't need a name. You can become anything. But Johan, if they're the monster of the East, they kept looking to find themselves and their identity. And then they became Johan and became this monster along the way. And it's like, is he nihilistic? Is he trying to save his sister? What is Johan's overall end goal? He keeps saying that he has a plan, but what's the plan? So we have 7 episodes left. And I feel like this episode answered a lot of questions, but it gave us like 1,000 more to think about in the meantime, right? Oh. And she's like, I've never seen anyone make a face like that. And I didn't shoot. But I'm sure that he'll destroy himself. Just like me. And Tim was like, nope, we're not going to have that talk. He's like, don't think that way. And he's like, just like I'll destroy myself. And it's like, no. And he's like, don't. And Timma grabbing her and hugging her. Because, yeah, I mean, Johan is just on this path. Johan doesn't care what the end game is. He thinks he's going to die anyway. He's already practically died once. He says he's seen the end so many times now. To him, it doesn't matter. But she's like, I'm going to destroy myself too. And Tenma's like, no, you're not. He's like, no, you cannot. And I love him just hugging her. And he's like, don't. He's like, if you died, if something happened to you, then what would I do? And all the broken glass, 2 things. All the broken glass that's around them in the windows and everything, and the gunshot now makes me think of the OP where he's looking in the mirror and the mirror's got the gunshot in it. It reminds me of this episode. So maybe it's a subtle nod to that symbolism, which is really cool. But also that line, what would I do? How could I go on without you? I was like, are we having a shippable moment right now between Nina and Tenma? I don't know how to feel about this because I remember way back at the start of the series, people were like, oh, I ship Nina and Tenma. And I was like, oh, there's a weird age gap there. That's like, he's nearly 40 and she's only 20 or 21. I'm like, there's a pretty big age gap there. I can't say that I ship them romantically because I really don't, but they are like-minded spirits. And I platonically ship them as friends, I guess. And then him saying, he's like, if you died, where would I go? And I'm like, where did this come from? Because I mean, like, I get that Tenma is trying to stop Johan for reasons because he feels guilty and feels that. But I'm like, is he really also killing Johan to get Nina safe? And he's like, where would I go if you died? I'm like, when did you like her like this? I don't think that has ever been established in the show. But okay. I mean, if it keeps her from killing herself, you say whatever you got to. And he's like, if you died, where would I go? Please live. I'm begging you. No matter what happens. And I mean, he's like, I'm begging you. And I love this. I love that he wants to keep her alive. He's wanted to keep her alive this whole series. He wanted to keep her alive back, during the fire and all that. It's just, I don't ship them, but this felt like a moment where he was like, I need you to live because I want you to live, which you can do that platonically. So I guess that's what it is. But also she was able to help him be a better person back then. So this is his way of repaying it. And Tenma doesn't want anybody to die. The only person that he thinks needs to die is Johan. So, I'm like, damn. That old scene was powerful. I was like, oh, I was speechless. And so then we have Peter walk in. And Peter, just crashes the party. And that's when he walks in to make his little statement. And that's when I feel like this whole thing where they find the car by the mansion and they realize Peter's the murderer. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of Monty Python where the historian randomly gets killed and the police show up and they're like, yeah, it was these guys and they went that way. Like, it reminded me of that. I was like, at that point, once they knew, I was like, oh, Peter's dead. The irony is Peter killed himself. He was his own undoing. If he hadn't shot that guy, he wouldn't have died. Basically, he ended up being his own destruction, his own inner saboteur. And then Tenma's like, oh, who the hell are you? And he's like, Johan is off to kill Franz Bonaparte. And Tenma's like, okay, all right, this is where we're going. And then I got it a little wrong in the reaction. That's when Peter says his son is in Prague. And I told Johan that. I don't know if it will end there. I don't know if it will be the limits of his destruction. And Tenma's like, well, I already know what I got to do. I've been on this mission the entire series, so thanks. But basically, so Peter, when they met a few episodes ago, told Johan where Lipski was. So if Johan goes out to find Bonaparte, he's probably going to find, by Peter's logic, Lipski and kill him too. But he didn't say Lipski there, so Nina has no clue that Lipski is Bonaparte's son. Does not know this. So that's interesting. Okay. And Tenma's like, well, shit. And basically Peter throws down the notion that, look, Johan is on this warpath. There's no telling where he'll stop or when. Anybody that's connected to Bonaparte that has tried to hurt Nina is fair game at this point. Right? And I like Tenma's like, what the hell? What do we do now? And then he walks away and then he says, what memory is she still missing? There's one more thing inside Johan. What was that memory? The thing that we were trying to create, Franz. So that's the thing. There's some memory that Nina doesn't have that Johan has that's supposed to be the key to all this, right? And that's why I feel that Nina was supposed to be the ones going to the readings and getting all the subliminal messaging, all the brainwashing. But I feel like there was a time that Johan went instead of her. And maybe that's why he's mad at the mom that she sent him instead. But he got a memory that Nina doesn't have that is the piece that would have put the puzzle together for her, but now it's not possible. So I feel like maybe that's the case, but we're going to find out. I don't know. But yeah, and that's when Peter gets shot. Oh, that just like boom, out of nowhere. And then they just leave him to die. And then he's like, please live. I'm sure. And I like that he's like, as they're walking away, that place you're supposed to go to, the place we're supposed to go to exists. And then now the question is, where are they supposed to go to? Are we talking about heaven? Are we talking about hell? What are we talking about? The place they're supposed to go to and where they're supposed to end up. I like them walking together, but it also feels like they're at the border. This feels like the OP. They're at the border, but we know from the OP Tenma's by himself. The question is he going to end up by himself, or is Nina and Johan going to be there too? I don't know. Meanwhile, Lunge's having the time of his life. So before we get to that, we go to this part. Now this scene here, he's like, oh, I'm glad you can make it. I never thought you'd be the one to contact me. Which is like, I was about to have some tea. Taste my famous tea. And he's like, it's my special herb tea. And Johan's like, in the shadows. Of course he's in the shadows, right? And then the guy's like, since you came here, it must be pretty important. And that's why the guy, and he says, so who are we going to kill next? So Johan's been to this guy to have him like assassinate people. He's hired this guy to kill for him. This one scene is one that I think is probably expanded on in the manga, but I don't want to know that for sure, so don't tell me. But I feel like this scene, it felt so short that I was like, is this longer in the manga? Is there more to it in the manga? Maybe there is. We'll find out in 7 episodes. But that's what it felt like. It felt like this was a scene cut short, and there's going to be more in the manga that we don't get here. Because I'm like, was he helping Johan kill others? Again, the funny thing is, this guy seems so unsuspecting, making his tea, having his little time here. You would never know that he's like, oh, let's kill someone. And it's like, what? So there's a chance he's from Kinderheim. Who knows? Who are we going to kill next? We don't know. Kristoff's in a hospital. Don't know. But yeah, but he seems like somebody that's helped Johan kill before. And Johan's like, I've got to cut out all my loose ends. And so I've got to get rid of you. And the thing about it is, Johan points to himself. And he says, and he points there like he's like, shoot me. And the guy's like, oh, stop with the stupid jokes. And that's when Johan lays the gun down. And he's like, stop. And he laughs it off. And Johan says, I've awakened from my dream. And he's like, are you tired? What about your plan? So this guy's been told the plan too, right? So it's like, we joked it off at the beginning of the series saying there can't be 2 Johans, right? There can't be 2 Johans. But it's so funny now because it's like, well, but then there technically are 2 Grimmers. There's Grimmer and the Magnificent Steiner. There's 2 of him, the state he becomes when he's stressed. And so there is, by that logic, if Johan's been in the same situation like Kinderheim, that there's 2 Johans. There's this Johan, the Johan that has the plan that Bonaparte has instilled in him, has the plan, is enacting it, but then he wakes up and he's like, shit, no, I've awoken from my dream. There is no plan. I don't have a plan. You all have to go. And so the question is, did Johan wake up that night he killed the Lieberts? He woke up from his dream, gave Nina the gun and said, okay, shoot me. Nope. I'm done. I don't want to be part of his plan anymore. Maybe. Because he looks like he talks to this guy because this guy's like, what about the plan? He's like, no, I've woke up from my dream. I woke up. I don't have a plan anymore. He's like, I've awakened. There is no plan. And the guy's like, well, hold on. Then why did I get all that money from you? And he's like, I awoke from my dream. He's like, why did I kill all those people? And he's like, I've seen the end many times, but now I see something different. The scenery of the true end. And that's when he takes the gun and he's like, in a memory that only I have. The place we are supposed to go. So I'm like, is the place they're supposed to go to kill Bonaparte? Like, where's that end up at? Still a mystery, right? But basically there's the Johann that schemed, that got this guy to get money, that killed people, that was doing all this, that was doing the plan, like he told Kristoff. And then there's this Johann that woke up that was like, no, I don't want to do that. Bye. But supposedly Johann has this special memory that Nina doesn't. And that's the key to all this. So there's that, right? No big deal. No big deal. But yeah, it just, Johann is this big conflict of dualities where he has the version of him that has a plan, the version of him that's awoke. And then there's the version of him that's in drag and the version of him that's not. And then there's him in the dress dressed up as his sister. And then there's him not. And so it's like, what do we do? So how does this work? There's still so much mystery. And he's like, the place we are supposed to go. So I'm like, the place they're supposed to go, where is that? Is that to Bonaparte's to kill him? Is that to get their revenge, supposedly? I don't know. I like that Tenma in this episode didn't run after Johann. He stayed to help Nina, right? And, it's this question here of Johann, when he wakes up from the dream, he's like, to get himself away from being that monster, the only way to stop him from being a monster is to kill himself. And Nina kind of has that same moment where she contemplates killing herself too, and Tenma talks her down from that. When Johann's walking away, he looks a lot like his mom. Like when they do the close-up of his face when he's walking away and he has like just the glare in his eyes, the nose and everything, he looks exactly like his mother, which is very interesting. Meanwhile, in Ruinheim, where we see Lipsky Bonaparte, that is who it was sent to, the postcard sent to Lipsky that Lunge is holding. And it's of the drawing of the tree and of the little town. And Johann and Lunge is like, Ruinheim. This is it. So I'm assuming that's where Bonaparte is. And Lunge's beat them all there to it. Supposedly. How does Johann know where Bonaparte is? Did Peter tell him? We don't know. But we have 7 episodes left and the mystery is there. I'm so excited. I'm glad. I'm so happy to see Lunge. Lunge back in the picture is so fun. What's he up to? Who knows? He's got a little duffel bag of his own. He's slowly turning into like the Tenma and Grimmer party. They should all just have a picnic together. That'd be great. But I mean, y'all. I'm very excited to see what happens next, but it's going to be real hard to wait. So I'm excited to hear your comments down below. I hope y'all enjoyed this episode and reaction. I am blown away. We finally, here's the problem. We get some answers, but there's still so much that's ambiguous that I need more to form a concrete opinion. And I think we're going to get that. It's just a matter of time. So we got 7 episodes, right? We'll see. So in any case, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more Monster. Bye.